Hello. Well, I'm going to start this video a little bit differently from usual because I'm going to start by thanking my subscribers, wishing you all a happy new year, and reminding you to like and subscribe and write a comment in the comments section because they all help with the algorithm. And I'm doing that now because I'm going to be dealing with a subject which has preoccupied my mind for a few days now, and by the time I've finished with it I probably won't be feeling much like talking about subscriptions or contributions or Happy New Year's or anything else come to that. So let's start. It happened last summer that a 19-year-old British woman on holiday in Cyprus reported to the local police that she'd been raped. She then found herself in a sort of Alice through the looking glass world, which not only did not make sense to her, it doesn't even make sense to me. And I shouldn't think it makes sense to many other people either. I don't really know what the facts are. I'm not really sure anyone does or will. But I can make a few guesses, and I'm putting them before you now to help out those of you who might not have been following this story. In its most basic form, it's as follows. A young woman about to go into university in September 2019 went on holiday to Cyprus during the summer. While there, she formed a relationship with a young Israeli man who was about her age, having finished school, and who was on holiday with some friends. They were all, not all of them apparently, some were quite young, but most of them were, well, taking a break prior to being conscripted into the army. It seemed like a nice little summer romance, and so after a while the young woman accepted the boy's invitation to his room for something more than a little hand-holding. Well, you know, I probably wouldn't have done that, but certainly this is not out of the ordinary for young people on holiday in Ayia Napa. As a matter of fact, I'm sorry to say that a lot of Brits are quite ill-behaved when in such places on holiday. This girl evidently was not badly behaved at all, but I think that subsequent events might have turned out to her disadvantage, at least partly because of the antics of her fellow citizens over previous many years. What happened next was an appalling attack upon her. She went to bed with the young man, but when he'd had his way with her, some of his friends came in and raped her in turn. At least this is what she told the police when she managed to get away. Now, I have no reason to disbelieve her. To say those boys were acting like a bunch of animals would be to insult animals. The Cyprus police, though, were apparently of a different mind, although at first they appeared to be with the victim. They did arrest the boys. However, after a while, it became evident that they were trying to get her to change her story. Finally, under pressure that, well, we're told it was pressure that lasted for hours of questioning, she did withdraw the complaint. The boys were released at once and they went straight back to Israel. It's their subsequent behaviour when they arrived home that convinces me they were guilty. It's well known in legal circles that when an innocent person who's been accused of a crime is found not guilty, the usual reaction is that they burst into tears. On the other hand, when a guilty one is found not guilty, the usual reaction is a smile of triumph. The rap, as they say, has been beaten.
James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder.
Across the nation and around the world, virtually everyone watched as
Now, when those Israeli boys got back to Israel, the first thing they did was have a party in the airport, popping champagne and chanting, "The Brit is a whore." It seems to me that they were more celebrating getting away with it than getting back to safety after a false accusation. As I said, calling them animals is a dreadful misdirection. I don't think there's a word low enough to describe them. Some of them were wearing, skull caps as well, which means they were supposed to be religious. Religious. Ha! Now, back to the young woman in Cyprus. The police had worked on her, getting her to revoke the accusation, and no doubt, and this is just my guesswork, by the way, but I've no doubt that they were telling her that they'd take the pressure off if only she'd retract and then she could go home. I'm guessing that because there was no lawyer present when all this was going on. Now, in what circumstances would the police question anyone without a lawyer present? I mean, what could they possibly be wanting to do by questioning somebody without a lawyer? So I'm sure they must have been trying, they were lying to her about what would happen next. I'm sure of that. Because they're Greeks, and Greeks, like most other Southern European people, have a pretty poor attitude to women, and especially to women to whom they are not related, women who are away from their families, women who are on holiday on their own. And then, having got the result they wanted, they then turned on her and started a prosecution for wasting police time or bringing Ayia Napa into disrepute or something. Hang on. The charge was public mischief. It's a very Mediterranean thing. The female victim is to blame. Now, that's one aspect of it, but it's not the only one. I think that girl just got caught in a perfect storm. Another aspect could very well be that the Cypriots are used to British tourists acting like a lot of rotting baboons while away from the constraints of the layers of clothing that they've been wearing in order to survive in the British weather, the bus timetable, the work schedule, the obligations, the daily routine. So as I keep reminding you, it very much appears that this young woman was a serious and well-behaved person who acted as a polite and law-abiding temporary resident of that island. However, there will have been elements in the Cyprus police who didn't see her through those eyes. By the way, these photos were taken only in Ayia Napa. There are other holiday resorts and the photos were just as bad for there as well. Of course, there are many who visit there who have their holiday, get a tan, go home and make no trouble in the meantime. But I wanted you to see how the Cypriots see many British tourists, and then perhaps you might understand why they could have had such a negative perspective on this one girl. There's obviously going to be something else as well. as I said, a perfect storm. Cyprus, Greece and Israel are building a gas pipeline. It runs, I think, from the Israeli Leviathan gas field, which is really a Leviathan. It's enormous, and it's going through the Cypriot area gas field, which is also pretty big, and then it ends up in Italy, supplying Europe with much needed gas. So it's a huge financial venture which is going to make little Cyprus, always starved of cash and always under constant pressure from Turkey, it's going to make Cyprus a lot of money. It's quite possible, therefore, that a few people high up in the Cyprus government don't want to rock the boat with regard to, well, that sort of international cooperation. On her own, Cyprus is prey to Turkey's predations and could never afford to complete the pipeline on her own. But as long as Israel is involved, she's safe. So bearing that in mind, and bearing in mind that the Cypriots are saturated with a Mediterranean culture which has a very non-Northern European attitude to women, and bearing in mind that they're scraping drunken British tourists off the pavements every Monday and Tuesday, and Wednesday and Thursday, well, they turned on this poor girl, and with a vengeance. But wait, as they say in the ads, there's more. Just in the event that you didn't think that's bad enough, well, I have something even worse to lay before you. Much worse. The headline runs, UK expresses unhappiness with Cyprus over rape claim verdict. Unhappiness. And a bit further down, some spokesman from the Foreign Office, I suppose, says that they will be raising the issue with the Cypriot authorities. Well, that's nice of them, isn't it? What do they mean, unhappiness? And this is the point I wanted to make. The depressing point. The one I didn't want to say and then leave you with notice about subscriptions. Do you not think that partly the attitude of both those Israeli kids and the Cypriot police might have stemmed from the knowledge that the whole world has, that Britain is not prepared to protect its girls from being raped? And so far as I'm concerned, those Israeli boys knew it when they embarked on their repellent conspiracy, and the Cypriot authorities knew it when they decided to make a scapegoat out of her. And they knew, just like I know, and just like most of the people watching this video know, that there was absolutely no way those people in Cyprus were doing anything that hasn't been done and is still being done to British girls here in this country every day of the week. So where's the fury of the British people? Where are the outraged feminists in pussy hats demonstrating outside the Cyprus embassy or the Israeli embassy? Just for once, not on some spurious ideas of Israel being a Nazi state, but on real ideas of a bunch of criminals getting away with rape. Where are the vigils, the speeches by 16-year-old saints in the House of Commons about how people treat women in this world, and particularly in the Eastern Mediterranean? Where are the furious letters to the editor? Where's the Twitter storm? Well, I have read a couple of newspaper articles, but there's a strange detachment to it. It's almost as if we're getting used to the idea that we regard this sort of thing as part of normal life. What the hell is wrong with our media and our government and our social setup that they seem so paralysed by such a situation? Or has what's happened to our girls in Rotherham just deadened us to this sort of attack, like some sort of inoculation? And because if it has, we've already lost. Anyway, January is the time when we Brits book our summer holidays, and if I were a young person considering a holiday destination in July or August, I'd look for somewhere else other than Cyprus, personally, and probably other than Israel as well. I don't know how the Israelis are reacting to this situation. I haven't seen that much about it, but I hope that the army gives those boys a tough time. And I certainly hope that the British government, they know who they are, and that the British government refuses them permission to set foot on our shores for a very long time. If you want to donate or contact, the information will be rolling over the Graniopteryx as I speak. Please like, subscribe and share because it does help with the algorithm. If you visit my channel on YouTube and one day discover that I've disappeared without warning, you'll still find me on BitChute or Minds. Just go to either of those platforms and do a search for Graniopteryx. If you're already watching this on BitChute or Minds, good for you. Meanwhile, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember that you must keep checking the subscribe and bell icons because occasionally they reset. Till next time.